Hello guys, it's Jonathan here doing another Bakugan BakuTech Retrospect episode. This is episode 8 on Blan Shoult. Blan Shoult was released as BTC 22. It is Chaos, although mine's attribute symbol is fairly worn, unfortunately. But yes, it is Chaos. Its G power is either 540 Gs or 580 Gs, and it was released in June of 2011. Its ball form is quite detailed, of course has white plastic, but it has a lot of gold detailing. Also you can see gold for the cross pieces, bit of blue as well. A lot of paint applications to this Bakugan. Opening it up, it opens up like this, and yes, sometimes the arms go up. It sort of just happens similar to Kilo and Leonis in that sense. As for its manual parts, it does have a few. You have these parts here that are effectively legs. They just fold out, and then also these hands here that also just kind of fold out fairly simply, and there's its full transformation. So taking a quick look here at Blan Shoult, it does look really nice. It's quite a tall Bakugan as well. Very impressive, especially for such an early Bakugan release within BakuTech. It was always a very striking looking Bakugan. You may have already noticed, but there are some cross pieces here. You have two metal cross pieces on the arms, which are very nice. However, there's also a third cross piece on its head here, which you tell by the shape, but it does blend in quite well. Part of Blan Shoult's physical design is actually this thing called the shock regulator system. The idea here is to transfer force from the bottom of the Bakugan to the top. You can sort of see this with how it opens up, and this part really springing it back up quite well. The idea is to sort of get hit, the tail stops it, and then this part brings it back up, the arms move. It works. It's definitely one of those concepts that sounds better on paper than in practice, in my opinion. However, it does technically still function, and considering how early this Bakugan was, it was actually somewhat interesting for its time. Obviously, as we got more defense Bakugan, this concept wasn't really as strong, but again, for its time, it wasn't too bad. Closing this thing is fairly easy, though it can be a little bit awkward at times. So first up, we of course want to close the manual parts, which I'll just kind of fold back up like that. So first up, I recommend just getting this tail out of the way. This part has to fold down, and then the rest just folds in. You have to hold that down, and then after that, this part comes down, these parts come down, then these arms just kind of go inward, and once you do that, then it's closed. It's fairly easy, but you may have to hold in a part or two as you're closing it, which can be a little awkward, but at the very least, the transformation process itself isn't too bad. Blan Shoult was owned by Siam, who was part of the rare Bakugan Hunters. Interestingly, both this character and group were only in the manga. That was the case with a few of these earlier Bakugan within BakuTech. Them and their actual owner never actually made it to the anime, so this is manga only. Blan Shoult also has a couple recolors. The gold version from BCB 21, White Radiance. This has either 560 or 580 Gs, and all three cross parts are plastic. We also have a somewhat odd variant here with Blan Shoult Kai. This is BTC 55, and is either 640 or 650 Gs. All three cross pieces are plastic, however, as a Kai Bakugan, it does have some additional metal, as the feet are now built in metal, meaning this thing can actually have 5 metal pieces total now if it wants to. Competitively, this thing is fairly interesting. To start, it did have 3 potential metal pieces, which already made it fairly decent for attack. However, at the time, it was a fairly large Bakugan, and the shock regulator system actually did help to bolster its defense, meaning that it was actually a solid all-rounder. However, over time, this would become worse and worse, as we got many Bakugan that were much more tailored to actual defense or occupancy, so this thing didn't really keep up too well. However, as an attacker, it still did function well. It had 3 potential metal pieces with decent distribution, and its open form did give it some bulk. The way the upper body springs forward actually does help with attack as well. So even if it wasn't its intended use, it did actually see some use. Like many early Bakugan though, it did start to struggle a lot more in BakuTech Gachi, as 36mm Bakugan were just extremely powerful. But even so, it was still a solid and respectable choice, and by my own metrics would land around high B tier. That said, Blan Shoult Kai is a bit different, as with 5 metal pieces it can be a decent bit heavier, making it a better attacker. I'm not sure I'd argue it to be that high up, but I do think it would probably cross the threshold into a low A tier. Potentially even mid A tier if you want to be generous. That's pretty much about it for Blan Shoult. It's somewhat of an interesting Bakugan for its time, and even though its intended use may not have panned out perfectly, it still at least found somewhat of a role, so that's nice. But anyway, that's really all for this video. Next time will be Grand Dragon, so anyways, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.